This is the Conejotako speaking, back on my feet. I have been sick since Tuesday, but I am feeling much better now and almost fully recovered, so I hope to get back to the usual pace of videos as soon as possible. In these last 3 episodes, everything has happened. From Subaru and Krush getting married to go undercover, to the reveal of a new character who will help Subaru's group and whose identity we still do not know. But by far the most important thing is the latest revelation regarding the blood relation between Hector, Pandora, and Echidna. All of this in detail in today's video. Welcome to the breakdown of episodes 29, 30, and 31 of Arc 10 of Re:Zero. Let us start with episode 29. I have to say that overall I really liked this specific chapter. In case you do not know, this episode tells us a bit about how Capella's influence has spread across the entire kingdom. Not only have key figures in the capital been replaced, but also people located outside that place. I must add that I really like the way they present the case of Viscount Moreau. Although it all boils down to showing us the replacement process, this gives us a more exact idea of what is happening across the entire kingdom right now, and how, if you are an ordinary person, the best thing you can do to avoid being targeted by Capella is not just staying out of her way and her pawn's way, but also being a figure with mediocre power. That way you do not hold much influence around you, and they do not feel the need to control you. And I am not making any of this up. These are the thoughts the Viscount has after seeing the mysterious power couple of the night. Speaking of the couple, I am curious to know if Krush and Subaru actually got married to get into their role as a couple. For better or worse, I imagine that did happen. Simply because I highly doubt that in the plan to save the nation, Russell would let the operation be blown just for lack of an official marriage registry. If you ask me how Amelia would react, I am sure she would not think poorly of the situation. Sure, I know she got jealous when she saw Shaula getting affectionate with Subaru, but that is different. She did not know Shaula at all, while Krush, she is someone with whom she already shares some familiarity. So I advise you not to expect a jealous Amelia over the reveal of Krush and Subaru's wedding. Something that seemed like an interesting callback to me was the dialogue Krush and Subaru used to talk about the processes of change, basically giving a short speech to introduce themselves to the Viscount. A Viscount who, remember, has been replaced, and this replacement has pushed forward policies of change, but these policies were not born from a noble cause, but from something entirely different. That is why I find reading the dialogues in this part interesting, and even more so when we see Krush share her thoughts on the changes needed for the nation, is remember that she wanted to break the covenant with the dragon in her eventual reign. And whether she is right or not about breaking the pact with that being aside, I like how the story at this point has her give a similar speech again, keeping her character consistent. On top of that, a moment that I feel makes this episode much better is when Krush talks about the loyalty of the old vassals. Let me give you some quick context. When Viscount Moreau was replaced, some old retainers noticed something off and kept their distance. This made unifying the Viscount's lands difficult, so he planned to get rid of them. But obviously that attitude would not sit well with Krush, who has always been a dignified and virtuous woman. She would not let that slide, especially now that she had a falling out with the most important servant of her household. That is why I think the author's choice to have Krush be the one reflecting on the imposter Viscount's situation was a great move. Oh, right. Subaru also gave a brief speech about how things were back in his homeland, but the words he said felt very disconnected compared to what Krush said. Hopefully in the official light novel release they make a small tweak to his speech, so it matches Krush's tone. Later, when they subdue the Count, some interesting discussions take place, though less important than the one I just walked you through. A discussion happens between Subaru and Saloum about how to handle the old retainers they saved. Honestly, I would like to tell you something about this conversation, but nothing comes to mind, so I will skip it, though I still invite you to read it. What did catch my attention again was the speech Krush gives to these servants who do not know where their lord is, basically giving them an inspiring speech saying they must stay united and look after the territory until their lord returns so that he has land he can continue overseeing. I say I liked this speech because Subaru points out how ironic it is for her to give a speech that could easily apply to the candidate's own situation, having stepped down from her position 2 months ago to live in hiding. Afterward, another equally interesting scene stars Felix and Subaru, you see, because Subaru genuinely wanted to confirm the well-being of the replaced person, that is, the original Viscount. He made a move that in Russell's eyes was unnecessary and put the operation at risk. This is brought up by him, but his allies, like Krush, Rachens, and Betty, step up to defend him, so in the end nothing really came of the matter, which then led Felix to mention that he is jealous of how spoiled Subaru is. Remember that Felix and Subaru have their history. Basically, both are obsessed with their candidate, but while Subaru has already learned to manage that side of himself for his candidate, Felix has not managed to do that yet. And now more than ever after fighting with Krush, It is safe to say that in this part of the story, he might go through a process like Subaru's to solidify his master-servant relationship with his lady. For now, we just see Felix admitting he is jealous of Subaru. We will see what comes out in the next chapters of this volume and this arc. Then the episode mentions how he needs to see the other members of his faction, but the funny thing is that he refers to the others as if they were a kind of drug his body needs, and in fact, the way he mentions them is very sweet, so maybe I will make a short about it soon. But for now, that covers chapter 29. Let us move on to 30. This episode was unexpected, not only because it dropped right as I was finishing the anime video, but also because of the major revelations it brought. So let us get into it. Just like the previous episode, Subaru and Salem argue again, but the story makes it clear once more that despite their bickering, that is just their way of getting along. But not everyone can get along despite their differences. As it is made clear how Crush and Felix's relationship has evolved, it is said that in these 2 months their relationship remains just as tense. Even though they had chances to patch things up, the moment simply has not arrived yet. Hopefully, when it is resolved, it happens at the climax of the arc. Rachins is also mentioned again, revealing that he is the one who has been supporting Russell the most with the planning. I like this because it confirms Rachins is filling a role similar to what Otto used to do. Now that I think about it, Rachins and Otto have a similar background, you know, being the sons of important figures in their city who ran away from home for certain reasons, so it is no surprise that Tappe does not hesitate to make both of them play a similar role in their respective factions. I really hope that just as Rachins had a great role in Felt's first fight against Aldebaran, he now gets a much better moment in this arc. Afterward, a new informant appears, someone who curiously goes by the alias Pink Rabbit. Honestly, I have seen many people say that informant was Ram, but it would feel weird for that to be the case, since neither Ram nor Amelia gave any sign of having been in touch with anyone else the last time they appeared. Personally, I choose to believe the informant must be a new character. I considered other pink-haired characters who have appeared, like one of Felt's maids, but I highly doubt that is the case. Another interesting piece of information is what Russell shares about how Capella is the only one who knows all of her members and keeps information isolated among her children. Why is this relevant? Because remember, there are 2 former children of Capella who no longer work for her. I am referring to Meili and Elsa. As for Elsa, obviously we know that she died, which is why she stopped working for Capella, but the details of her death, as far as I remember, have not been common knowledge, meaning the general public does not know. And even when Subaru was rewarded, he was only credited for subjugating the great May beasts. What am I getting at with this? I see it as possible that Subaru's group might use Elsa's name at a later point in the story to extract information, or for whatever the plot needs, or they might even revive Elsa with the spell only Felix knows, and one way or another, she ends up helping them under the excuse that it will help Meili, someone Elsa cared about, as we saw in the anime. Remember that this would only be possible by taking advantage of Capella not sharing the full status of her children among the children themselves, so the other beloved children might just think Elsa is busy on a long mission. Either way, what I just said feels like it is bordering on fanfiction, but hey, the possibility is definitely there. That said, I do not think they could use Meili's name for the same purpose, since in side stories set after Season 4, the girl's involvement as a member of Amelia's camp was already made public. Capella and her children must already know about her existence and betrayal. Getting back to today's episode, what is revealed is that this mysterious informant found a lead to reverse the effects on the Pristella victims, and also on the victims who were replaced. This is where I want to pause for a second. You see, obviously the Pristella victims need help as soon as possible, but I always thought that when people were replaced by Capella, they kept the replaced people captive somewhere, while someone else posed as the kidnapped person. But for the text to say they can reverse the effect on the replaced people, makes me believe there are not 2 people sharing the same identity, but rather just one person who is implanted with a second consciousness, one they can manipulate. Maybe something like what happened to the amnesiac Subaru in Arc 6. As much as I like this theory, I doubt that is the case, mainly because the body replacements seem to be something that has been going on for a while. And this method of implanting a second consciousness was exclusive to Rui. It does not seem like the other gluttony archbishops could replicate it. In any case, what does seem safe to say is that whatever Capella is doing implants another consciousness inside the bodies of the replaced people. Returning to the episode, after this information, Felix seems exasperated by this reveal of another possibility to cure the victims, simply because it meant he had another option besides seeking help from the Divine Dragon Church, which makes him lament his choices, only for Crush to step in and make him realize there is no point in crying over the past, and that obviously hurts him. Later, the narration gives us another clue about Melty's connection to Tiga, as a moment arrives where Subaru mentions his name, and Melty goes blank for a few seconds. Some believe it is because at some point in her past gluttony erased her memories, and that is why she reacts like that. But personally, I do not believe that is the case, simply because we already saw in another episode that she was on the verge of asking Subaru about him, but could not bring herself to do it. Next comes the most interesting part of the episode, the part where Russell asks Subaru if he has a way to contact Roswaal, since he wants to consult information about the soul that a witch possessed. Honestly, that part was easy to guess. The only witch who led a lot of research is the Witch of Greed, and although Subaru tries to give an explanation for the different echidnas he met, he fails to connect all the dots. Thanks to Arc 9, we know exactly what happened to Echidna. To sum it up, the echidna that Betty and Roswaal knew received the greed witch factor on the brink of death, and that was what changed her personality to the version of her we met in the sanctuary. Because we know this, I did not pay much attention to this part of the episode where it was just Subaru coming up with his theories about Echidna, but the relevant part would come at the end, when it is revealed that they can find information in the house where Betty grew up. Yet the most interesting thing is that the girl says that to find that place, they have to do it from a certain coordinate, specifically from Flugel's tree. Setting the revelations aside, I must admit it still catches my attention how much Subaru knows about the German language. I say this because, as you must already know, the name of Betty's home has a German name. Sure, maybe Echidna was the one who named her home that way, but we have proof that the witch learned strange words from Flugel, so it is safe to say that in the end, Flugel himself was the one who directly or indirectly named that house. Just between us, I cannot remember Subaru's connections to the German language. The only one I recall is that Natsuki Schwartz is a German name, but outside of that I do not remember another element. Why is this important? I say it because I am curious to know how well-versed Subaru is with that language, since up until now he has not shown himself to be someone all that fluent, and if it later turns out that Flugel is an expert in German, well, we would already have a big difference with the protagonist, but that remains to be seen. However, while I was writing this, episode 31 of Arc 10 came out, and along with that, more things to comment on. Right now, Subaru remembers what he thought of Flugel since he first heard of him in this world, first remembering how he learned about him shortly before the battle against the White Whale, and how he heard of him during the events of Season 4, also recalling how he learned a bit of German because he was looking to learn words that sounded cool. Another mistake made by the protagonist is remembering Hoshin and thinking that he is also from his hometown because of the strange terms he used, when in reality, we know Hoshin learned those foreign words from Flugel himself. Obviously, Subaru has no way of knowing this, but I wonder what he will think when he finds out. Afterward, there would be an interesting chat between Subaru and Felix, who mention how they did not expect to return to the tree since the events of Season 1. Here, Felix mentions an interesting thing that he tries to keep as a secret, but it is very likely we already know what he refers to. He talks about how he has upgraded his healing magic so that a person does not die even if they want to. We know this because it was his trump card against Aldebaran in the last arc. But what I did not know is that apparently that magic he perfected will work even on spirits like Betty. Another thing mentioned, and I feel is done well, is how Felix briefly mentions that he knows Subaru is trying to help him and his former candidate reconcile, and just asks him to stop. I like this, because Felix's subplot continues building in parallel with the main story. Instantly, Felix leaves because he sees Krush approaching. The candidate talks for a while with Subaru, and unintentionally ends up saying things similar to what Felix said, showing in this way the closeness she still shares with her former servant. Then Subaru promises her that things will turn out fine, just like what happened in Season 1. Upon reaching the place, I like how it is said that all the negotiations to clear the site fell on Melty, and that is obviously because of her ability that allows her to influence people. The most striking thing about this part is that they clear up an insecurity we had. Since the tree was partially destroyed, there was doubt over whether it could still be used as a link between Betty's home and the tree. Betty clarifies that the link depends on the base of the tree, and that was still standing. Instantly, it is said that a portal opens. A portal that, according to Betty, will not close for quite a while. I am just saying that if an enemy wants to make a move, now is the time. I also like how Russell, to verify the safety of the portal, first sent one of his men to check what was on the other side, specifically sending Saloom. This catches my attention because I do not know if Saloom was joking or something like that, but he said he was someone whose body and heart would not feel pain if he were injured. That feels weird to me because in the game he did not have those traits, or maybe he just said it as a joke. This portal thing also helps me realize a possible answer to a mystery from Arc 9. Remember that when Aldebaran came out of the seal 4 centuries later, he met Echidna again in the sanctuary. The story makes it clear that Aldebaran did not go to the sanctuary to see her, but rather reached that place through another entrance. And now that it is revealed that Echidna had an entrance to her former home through a specific portal, it is safe to say that Aldebaran used the same method to meet with his former master again. This leaves open the question, what place did he use as a midpoint to reach the sanctuary? Part of me wants to believe he reached the sanctuary through Flugel's tree, but I would not mind if it is later revealed that there is another entrance somewhere else. We will see. Returning to the present, it is said how after Saloom entered and confirmed everything was fine, The others followed him one by one, and so on until it was Subaru's turn, who upon entering was surprised to arrive at a destroyed castle, yet not destroyed by the passage of time, but by the aftermath of an attack from something or someone. Then the biggest revelation of Arc 10 so far would happen. A revelation that amuses me because Betty herself mentions that maybe she should have said it sooner. As it turns out, Hector and Pandora were Echidna's parents. Honestly, this revelation gives another perspective on the encounter Echidna and Hector had in the flashback that appeared in the sanctuary. I remember that back then. Reading the dialogues they had in that memory gave off a strong vibe that there was some kind of love in the past, but it was hard for me to consider it the love of lovers, and now that today's episode reveals they were family, the love they both had was familial, which makes more sense. This reminds me that in the past the author had commented on related things, like her parents being terrible people, and now the part about her parents being terrible people finally makes sense to us. It seems that for now it is safe to say that the group from 400 years ago had the parents of one of their members as an enemy. The most curious thing is that these parents did not go against Echidna once she became a witch, but rather they went against her even when she was a good person. Even when the witch was a good person, it seems she was already disowning her parents after all. In Shaula's novel, we confirmed that Pandora sent her followers to attack her. Hopefully we will soon learn more details about this dysfunctional family. Lastly, another thing that also surprised me about the episode was the revelation that the place where Echidna's castle sits is located in a different dimension, one where there is no ground surface, which is why Betty warns everyone to be careful not to fall off the place. That confirms for me that Aldebaran did not know about the existence of this place, since had he known, he would have gone to these coordinates to throw the orb containing Subaru in Arc 9. While I was recording this, the author just rewrote certain parts of the episode. He did not rewrite anything interesting, to be honest. He just changed certain descriptions, like the castle being in complete darkness and them lighting the path with fire magic. A reaction from Subaru upon hearing Hector and Pandora's names was also added, but it is not a big deal. But for the third time, while I was writing this, another episode came out, and things are really complicated for Subaru. But let us get into this. In this new episode, we are told how the group arrives at Echidna's private laboratory, a laboratory that, from the way it's described, is fascinating to imagine. It is also briefly mentioned that creating pocket dimensions is possible, but it requires a lot of mana, and they leave it up in the air that Echidna could, if she solved the mana issue. Maybe I misunderstood this, but I hope to have the translation soon. As for the laboratory, it is said that they found creatures frozen inside crystals. It is not the most exact description and it is not like they are alive, but you will understand soon. It turns out that Echidna knew a way to freeze the ode of the creatures she captured. The creatures had already died, but in a certain way, she managed to capture a moment of them in life and studied them in the laboratory. In fact, it is said there were fish, birds, and maybeasts frozen in the place. And there was even a light that allowed one to see the inside of each being. I will take this opportunity to let you know that in the world of Lugunica, there are maybeast capybaras. I would like one of them to be mentioned soon. But this was not the most interesting part. The most interesting part was the room where Echidna kept the results of her research. A room that, according to Betty, she was forbidden from entering. After locating the room, they discovered documents and books of all kinds, scattered in a room that was the same size as the main dining hall of the Roswell mansion. The witch really was a messy person, and it fell on the group to start organizing everything to choose which documents to take, while Russell, thanks to his power that allows him to tell the value of things, sped up the process. I must admit I was curious about how the author took the time to mention some of Echidna's research regarding flowers. I know it might just be a random fact, but usually Tapie likes to drop those details, so they later connect with a future revelation. Though let me throw out a small prediction and say that maybe the research on flowers will help the protagonists in their eventual fight against the Great Snake. Let us remember that the snake is not exactly a snake, but something like a kind of flower. Will I be right? Who knows? Then something would happen that made me curious. Betty reveals a gift she once received from her mother that she could not take out due to the attack the place suffered by Hector, so everyone decides to go look for it with her. Although we already know this ends in a kind of trap for Subaru, who ends up dying, I wonder what kind of gift Echidna gave Betty back then. I would like to think it is a very powerful item, but giving a powerful item to the girl would end up buffing Subaru, and the author does not do that very often. Hopefully whatever Betty lost is a nice keepsake for her. While they go looking for Betty's gift, a bit about Melty and Salem's past is revealed to us. It is said how they are not sure about the bond they shared. In the game they are siblings, but it seems they forgot it here. I remember mentioning in another video how one of the additions in the latest light novel volumes is a short story about the day they met, so to speak. There we can see how it seems Melty was affected by the authority of gluttony, and maybe that explains why they say they cannot remember everything clearly. Not only am I curious about why Teppei does not confirm they are siblings, but it also seems that the authority of gluttony that affected them only devoured a part of their memories, since they still remembered things about Capella. Anyway, we will see what happens. Afterward comes the part where Subaru goes through some rubble, but upon reaching the other side, all of his companions vanish, and no matter how much he goes back to the previous room, they are no longer there. Then the ground beneath his feet disappears, and he falls into the void. And although he tries to grab onto something with his whip, he manages to do it, but someone cuts his weapon, and thus he falls into the abyss, where he dies after many hours as a result of hunger, exhaustion, pain, and blood loss. That was all for today. Recently, I have not uploaded much content, and that is because besides my illness, I am preparing a 1-hour video about one of the best Re-Zero novels, and if you loved Elsa's video, you will like this one even more. Similarly, as soon as that is done, I will go back to uploading lots of shorts, but in the meantime, hang in there a little longer. Remember that a like and a comment help with the platform's recommendations, so tell me, what did you think of these latest episodes?